Welcome to Retail Retold, the stories behind how that store landed in your neighborhood. I'm Chris Ressa, in conversation with the people and stories shaping retail and real estate. Brought to you by DLC.
Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of Retail Retold. I'm Adam Ifshin, the CEO and founder of DLC, and I am not your regular host, Chris Ressa. Chris has ceded the host's chair to me, and we are coming to you from the SiriusXM Studios at the wonderful Wynn Las Vegas resort, which is the host hotel for this year's ICSC Las Vegas 2026. And it is my absolute pleasure, honor, and privilege to be joined by my friend and our fearless industry leader, ICSC CEO, Tom McGee. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, Adam. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, we always welcome an opportunity to talk first and foremost to friends, particularly ones who are so passionate about our industry. And I think it's really appropriate here on the eve of the kickoff tomorrow of ICSC Las Vegas 2026. We can do a little bit about the state of the industry, and then perhaps we'll spend a few minutes reflecting on where ICSC has gone in your leadership, which is, I think, something that I'd like everybody to know a little bit more about. So let's get started. This is my 33rd convention. Lord help me.
You started when you were in grammar school.
I wish, but thank you. Flattery will get you everywhere. Yes, I paid my dues already. So there's a lot of industry. There's the industry buzz. The energy feels really, really good. You're now this is your 10th, 11th?
This would be my 11th.
11th, right?
Vegas, I think, yeah.
So
yeah.
Does this one feel different to you too?
It does in a couple ways. One, I think in my tenure at ICSC, this is the strongest the industry's been. I mean, the industry's thriving, and I'm sure we'll get into this. I mean, there's the supply-demand mismatch that exists in the industry where the supply isn't there to meet the demand. But it's also, we're doing new and innovative things as part of the show this year too. We're launching ICSC+PropTech. We'll have 180 technology brands here,
including one DLC.
That's right, and we also are launching ICSC+Women and CRE as well. So we have two new events within the world's largest commercial real estate event, ICSC Las Vegas. So I have to be honest with you, from my perspective, I'm always excited going into Vegas. I am exceptionally excited about this year's show. I think, there's a little anxiety, obviously, when you launch something new, like those two shows, already in the midst of something as big as ICSC Las Vegas. But I'm so excited because, the industry is thriving, it's strong, and we're trying to match, that strength of the industry by bringing new, innovative things to offer for the benefit of our members. And so, I would say strength of the industry, new offerings from ICSC, and my level of excitement is just, at as high as it's ever been.
Well, it's okay to be a little nervous. I actually made a post today on LinkedIn about the fact that even after all these years, there's always a little trepidation. There are little butterflies. It's a little like...
Good to have butterflies in your stomach. That means you care.
For sure. That's where the passion comes from. It also gives you that... it keeps you grounded in a certain kind of way. Let's talk about some of these new things, because I think they're really, to me, on a lot of different levels. Like many CEOs, entrepreneurs, we're trying to figure out what's the right balance between the tradition and the technology. But also for me, with 3 children, only one of them in the business, who happens to be a woman, my daughter, Anya, let's start with the part a little bit about these two initiatives, because to me that seems what's different. What made you latch on to and really champion the PropTech part of this?
Well, first and foremost, we're a membership organization, right? So we need to respond and react to the needs and desires of our membership. Commercial real estate has not always been a fast adopter of technology, but I think that's increasingly changing. And, we had a lot of members talk about, why don't we have more technology as part of ICSC Las Vegas, as part of ICSC in general, talking about, new programs and applications that could benefit the industry and obviously AI. And so to me, it was responding to a need that the members had raised to us. And then I was like, yeah, that we should. And if we're going to do it, we should do it big because we're ICSC. And, our ICSC plus PropTech will have, as I said, 180 technology companies here in year one. We have over 100 hosted buyers as well, DLC being one of those, that are here to meet with those technology providers. We have venture capital firms here as well. All the major leading venture capital firms in the space are here. And so this is an opportunity for us to really lean into technology when I think the industry is going to increasingly lean into technology, with the supply-demand mismatch. I think there's an increased emphasis upon profitability and operational excellence, and technology can really help with that. And certainly AI, I think, provides a whole new frontier in that regard. So my aspiration, to be honest with you, is to build the world's largest PropTech conference. We have attended.
Small goals. Small goals. I love it.
We have attended. I've attended all the major PropTech conferences, and I don't see any reason why we can't have the be larger. And matter of fact, quite frankly, we may already be larger than any of those other ones this year. We have well over 3,000 people that have indicated they plan to attend and participate in the PropTech conference. And the demand for space from the technology industry was in excess of the floor space that we set aside for this. And so next year, I'm confident that we can build this out even bigger. And I think when folks experience having the energy of 25,000 people, being part of a tech show, part of already what's special about ICSC Las Vegas, that energy and entrepreneurship that just our industry is all about. I think there'll be a little bit of FOMO for those that aren't here too. At least I hope. And I think it's gonna get bigger and bigger for the benefit of our membership, and for companies like yours that I think are increasingly leaning into technology.
The complexity around technology makes it really hard. Even though we're one of the bigger in the industry, it's hard as a private company to navigate the complexity, the optionality, and the rapid pace of change in that space. So I, for one, selfishly, very much think that this could be a great added member value benefit. The other part of it, though, is, and I spent a decade on the executive board, including your first formative years as the CEO. And you have a weapon. You have this thing. You have a team that is really good at getting 25,000 high-tier real estate professionals in one place for a high-quality event, and to be able to leverage that by bringing not only new member benefit, but new sources of revenue to the industry, I think is really, really smart. I mean, nobody wants to keep going to the same thing, see the same people do it. Yes, there's a familiarity that's, I think, comforting for people, but I think it's important that the industry, which for many, many years, quite candidly, struggled to get to a place where it was more on offense than defense, and now it is. Well, this is, to me, just part of that. Let's turn. I'm going to come back to the women in CRE part a little later. I will not forget it, I promise. Like I said, I'm super passionate about it. Let's turn and talk about the consumer a little bit. While inside of DLC, we have not been surprised by the American consumer's resilience. I think a lot of people have been, and I think a lot of people continue to say, well, Armageddon for the American consumer is like just around the corner. You guys have your head in the sand. You're talking your own book. You've got access to a lot of data. You talk to everybody, not only in our industry, but in other industries. What's your take right now on the state of the American consumer?
Well, I think the state of the American consumer is uncertain in some ways. Their mindset is uncertain. I think the word that you use, resiliency, is definitely factual. Consumers have continued to spend. Just look at the most recent retail sales numbers. I mean, exceptional growth. At the same time, you have, consumer sentiment at, a pretty historically low level. A lot of that has to do with just at the headlines, certainly the concern around inflation. I think that's real, for sure. And people continue to spend, but they are spending more. An increasing percentage of things are going towards essentials, and because of price increases as well. So I think the consumer is resilient. I think the job market has been strong. and the unemployment rate is still at an historically very low level.
Absolutely.
And at that, to me, that's the most important number. If the job market continues to maintain its level of stability, then people will continue to spend. If you look back on history and you look at, consumer spend, regardless of whether they feel good or bad, if they feel confident in their job, they will continue to spend. I mean, Americans will continue to go to stores and to shop. So I think that the employment market is super important. Now, the most recent numbers also, the most recent inflation numbers showed that wage growth didn't keep pace with inflation, so that we have to watch that. That's a little concerning. So I think the mixed signals are mixed signals. I mean, we should acknowledge that there are mixed signals out there, but but despite all of that, over the course of the last couple of years, despite uncertainty, despite concerns, despite the stickiness of inflation, the consumer has been resilient and has continued to spend. And I think they will continue to do that as long as the employment market remains strong.
Well, certainly the employment market as a growing entrepreneurial employer, at least what we see on the margin, is that the job market remains quite tight.
Yeah.
And people are, I think to some degree, people are being a little more stable. They're being a little more selective about whether or not they're willing to make a move in the job market. But we see the job market is still quite strong, and traffic at our centers continues to grow and continues to build off of now 4 or 5 years in a row of substantial increases in traffic. Now, we are unabashedly in the value space, and I think we are benefiting to some degree from that sector rotation, right? People are higher and higher average household income families are shopping for value.
Absolutely.
Across the spectrum of Walmart, Target, Home Depot, et
And
cetera.
they've talked about it, in their earnings releases and their earnings calls. They've talked about, attracting higher income shoppers into their stores. And so that obviously suggests that there's a concern around inflation and the price consciousness, but they do continue to spend. And, I look at the glass definitely half full from that regard, but are also cognizant that there's risks out there. The price of oil and gasoline prices is obviously, a concern because that's real. That's a real cost to people every week that takes money out of their pocket that they otherwise would have spent in other ways.
Yeah, we're certainly watching. Not that we can do anything about it, but we're looking at the whole geopolitical situation of which. Energy markets are one, and we know that has a very direct impact on the consumer, but also on our retailer partners, our retailer clients. So we are watching it. But so far, and one of the things I've been encouraged about, I'd be interested on your take because I know you're a student of this, is it feels to me like one of the things that has happened since the global financial crisis, but particularly since the pandemic, is the caliber of the financial management of these retailers, their ability to manage cost, manage inventories, see places to strike and take share when they get the opportunity. I was super impressed by Michael's taking all that share after Party City and Joann's went out last year. It does seem like the retail management of the retailers is better, and that's leading to a better consistency of earnings. I don't know if you've thought about that much.
Yeah, I think it's even broadly across American business. Those businesses that navigated the pandemic effectively. When you go through a crisis, you build and you successfully navigate that crisis. You build confidence, you build new skills. Certainly, with technology and AI and so forth, people are much better informed. Information and data is much more readily accessible. So I think I think that's right. I think the ability for those companies that came out of the pandemic in a position of strength and stability, that they have continued to be able to navigate today's environment pretty successfully. I'm always amazed at the strength of American business and American business people. I mean, I'm just amazed at the American economy, quite frankly, and just the level of entrepreneurship, innovation, resiliency. Look at the pandemic. I mean, pandemic. You never want to say a pandemic was a good thing, but as it relates to our industry, there was so much change that got accelerated in a short period of time.
And my God, didn't it turn out to be so much better? You and I were on calls every day in the beginning, every week. But the reality is that this industry outperformed everybody's expectation during the pandemic.
Well, people were writing our obituary, and the opposite happened, right? We came out of the pandemic in a position of strength. It obviously accelerated, some things that needed to happen. Some companies that were struggling, they left the industry. It accelerated the omni-channel environment, and retailers using their stores as not just for traditional shopping, but many fulfillment centers, because they kind of had to during the pandemic. And people, most importantly, Americans realized how much they enjoy getting together, and the life that's brought to a community in their local shopping centers. And I think all those things coming together has positioned our industry where it is today in a level of strength. And of course, there just hasn't been a lot of new construction or new development since the great financial crisis, and you've had retail sales grow so dramatically over that.
Fundamentals are really strong right now.
And I don't see, by the way, even if there was an economic correction, I don't see the supply-demand mismatch in our industry changing anytime soon, because look, just the cost of capital, the cost of development, obviously inflation, lack of labor, all those things, you're just not going to have a development boom anytime in the foreseeable future. There's not going to be a lot of new development happening in retail, even if there was a need, because you just can't make the numbers work. And even if you did, it would take a number of years for that to really come into place, into online for use. And so I think we're going to be operating in this kind of supply-demand mismatch for a reasonable period of time.
And we agree with you at DLC. The runway feels good. Rents are so far below what rents would need to be to meet replacement cost and returns. Capital feels disciplined. And let's face it, historically, right, we've taken a lot of supply out of the system, whether that's because it's been converted to other uses, residential, self-storage, a lot of medical, et cetera, and that all continues. But we've also seen a lot of new concepts, and clearly, I think we can conclude without it, we'll say asked and answered, right? E-commerce did not come to kill us. And in many ways, the post-pandemic, as you pointed out, omni-channel drove the retailers to say, hey, the most efficient way to access that last mile, I had it already. And we've seen the pure play e-commerce players, Amazon included, really struggle in the last mile as a result of it. So let's turn to something a little bit different briefly. And I guess it's time for the obligatory AI conversation. But you sit in a really a different place than someone who's just going to say, oh, I know a little bit about AI. You commissioned a report. You had a platinum partner in McKinsey work with ICSC. Give us a little bit of a taste of what your view is of AI in terms of how it's already impacting the industry and perhaps where you see it going next.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, we partnered with McKinsey. They were a wonderful partner throughout this. We, surveyed over 3,000 consumers, did countless interviews with retailers and also developers and others that participate in our industry. I think everybody acknowledges the store is going to continue to be critical to the shopping journey. So the store is not going away, even as AI accelerates and advances. I think I do think it raises the game or the expectations for retailers and developers alike. I think that one of the findings was that stores need to be more purposeful as to what their prime purpose is. Are they there for convenience? Are they there for discovery? You can offer both, but you need to understand what your prime purpose is. If you're in a highly dense urban environment, you're likely going to be much more convenience oriented than if you're in a suburban environment, as an example. So for a retailer needs to have, a clear purpose for a store. And that doesn't mean that every store in their portfolio needs to fill the same purpose, but destination, where it's located, and its purpose is quite important. That also, means that they need to partner quite effectively with the owner and landlord as well, because things like, if it's convenience oriented and things like curbside pickup and click and collect and so forth, traffic flows and so forth within a shopping center are going to continue to evolve. It's meant to be convenient. You don't want to have traffic jams going in and trying to pick something up curbside. So, but the most important thing is that consumers are just going to get increasingly better informed. I mean, statistically, when you look at the number of consumers that already use AI tools in the shopping journey, I mean, it's almost 3/4 of shoppers use AI in some way to do research, to price comparison, to read reviews, et cetera.
Well, and the retailers are driving them to use it.
Sure, and that's going to continue to happen. I don't think that I think agentic AI will. The expectation is that in 5 years from now you'll have $1 trillion of transactions that are driven through agentic AI. But the store will still be central to the experience. AI tools don't always mean that there's going to be flying drones around and new things. I mean, it's also things that happen to allow the retailer and the landlord to manage their businesses a lot more effectively too. Just like the consumer is better informed, the retailer and the landlord are going to be better informed because they're going to have access to these tools and the ability to manage their business much more effectively. So we walked away from it convinced that the store will still be central to the shopping journey. But as with anything, when there's new technology and a better informed consumer, the expectations of what they desire are going to evolve and change. But that's always been the case in retail. I mean, this is a fiercely competitive business, right? I mean, you can look at the top retailers in the country 30 years from now and today. I mean, it's evolved quite a bit, right? That's just retail. And